Pickled green beans or dilly beans are a staple in my household. Now all you gotta do to whip these guys up is make a 1-to-1 pickle brine. So for a standard recipe doing about 2 pounds of green beans, that's 2.5 cups vinegar to 2.5 cups water, followed by a 1/4 cup of pickling salt. Now while that's coming to a simmer, you should also get your water bath canner or your steamer canner like what I'm using in this case, all coming up to a simmer/boil. Now a little tip for heating up your lids, alternate them inside the pot that you're simmering them. That way they don't get all stuck together. And weigh out your beans so that way you're actually making enough brine for what you're doing, so you're not making too little brine or way too much brine. Now these steps here, they're optional. I like to make pretty jars for my shelves, so I add in a little bit of visual flair/pop, and it also adds a lot of flavor to my dilly beans. So I'm peeling some garlic, slicing some onion into some half moons, making some, I guess you could call them medallions out of habanero, getting those sliced nice and thin, pop them off to the side so you got a decent mise en place going. Don't forget the red bell pepper, because that pop of red color is just beautiful on the shelves. Now once everything's all sliced up and ready to go, get your hot jars out of the oven. Just be careful not to burn your hands on the jars. And if you're going for presentation to make sure they're pretty on the shelves, pay attention to where the pretty little design on the ball jars is. That's going to be the face of the jar. Start by throwing in 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and start stacking in the habanero and the garlic, and make sure to keep the jar horizontal for this stage, and everything is being stacked behind the ball design. Or if you're using cur jars, just make sure that you're using the blank side. Now for the dill, I like to remove the part that holds it all together. It lays a little bit more flat, and I like to back my pretty colors with the dill frills and dill flowers, so it makes a nice pretty backdrop texture before adding in all of the beans that are going to be filling out the rest of the jar. Now remember, don't lift up the jar vertically until you get beans backed behind your flashing that you're doing here. Stack in nice straight beans directly behind that, and then once you have those in place, then turn your jar vertically and finish packing it with the rest of your beans. And boom, you got a pretty little picture that's going to be sitting up on your shelf for the next 6 months while these get all good and pickly. Now once the jar is completely full, it is a-okay if the tops of your beans are longer than your jar. All you got to do is just take a little paring knife, trim them down, and don't waste those bits. Just stuff them back inside the jar. That way you're utilizing all of the space of the jar. You're not wasting any of the beans, and you don't got to worry about grandma haunting you for wasting any produce. Just make sure that you're maintaining about 1/2 inch of head space, because you don't want those beans popping up and messing with your seal and the canning process. And I like to play with how I frame my design here behind the little frilly design on the jar here. So each of my jars comes out a little bit different, but it's fun for me. I like making these jars look pretty while they're sitting on the shelf. But just to give you a full run through, I start with my habanero, throw the garlic in there, bell peppers, throw in the onion, dill frill, dill flour, and then start backing it with the beans. I forgot to put the cayenne pepper in at the beginning, but it's okay if you forget to put the cayenne pepper in first. You can always put it in on top. It doesn't make a difference. Trim up the tops, make sure that you get all those bits and bobs stuffed back in the jar, and boom, got another jar ready to get filled up with the brine. So if you're raw packing these, make sure that your pickling brine is at a simmer before you put it inside the jar, and that your canner is ready to go at this point. And I do recommend raw packing dilly beans over doing a hot pack. I personally think the texture comes out way better. Make sure to tap them down so you can help eliminate any air bubbles that are inside of there. And I also make sure to go and give them a wiggle with a chopstick, just to make sure everything's been moved around and I don't have any air in there, so that way I don't have to worry about my seals not sealing. And I always make sure to line up the date with the front face of my jar, so that way the date is always facing me on the shelf, so I don't got to give it no spins or turns to know when I canned it or which ones to grab first. So I'm making sure to get my oldest stuff pulled out first. Fill up the steamer canner, process it for 10 minutes for both pint and quart jars. And if you're using a steamer canner, I strongly recommend putting a weight on top of it, just so that lid doesn't pop up on you. If you have any leftover brine, store it in a jar inside the fridge so you can use it for your next batch of pickles, and boom, you got what is, in my opinion, the best pickle that you can make. They are crisp, they're crunchy, they're delicious. Eat them plain, throw them in sauces or marinades. Just make sure you're using the freshest green beans you can get your hands on. I know it's the end of the season, and I know I'm a little late to this, but also make sure you don't almost drop your jar while it's hot coming out of the canner. All right, appreciate you guys. Happy canning.